Hi, everyone. Hi, hello, happy afternoon, happy after lunch. How are you? You good? All right, good. I think I'm actually going to stay up here for a few minutes while people filter in, and then I'm probably going to come down and hang out down here. Would anybody be bothered by that? No? We'll see. We'll see how much we want to move around. Okay, so here's what we're doing today. We've got 45 minutes to focus on you. The content I'm going to be giving to you today is for you personally to go out and be able to show up even more strongly in your leadership, to show up better with your kids, to show up better with your team members, to show up better with the cab driver. It does not matter. So these are the 5 things I want you to have today when we walk out. Do these feel like they're useful? Okay, cool. And here are the things that I want you to have that I haven't put on a slide. The first thing is the knowledge that your presence has impact. Your presence has impact. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I also want you to have that how you show up matters. So how we show up not only for other people around us, but for ourselves in terms of how we talk to ourselves, how we take care of ourselves. All of that has a humongous impact on our ability to show up with the rest of the world. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit today. I want you to know that the culture that you have today, whatever your culture is in your organization, as much as you might love it or not love it or whatever, there is something that you're doing in the way that you're showing up that is contributing to that culture. So most people think that the culture gets created by everybody else, or the executives create the culture, or the foosballs create the culture, foosball tables, excuse me, create the culture. But really, we emanate the culture we want to be a part of. And the content I'm giving you today is some of the magic little tips and tricks to get there faster so that you show up in a way that helps you create the culture you actually want. Make sense? Cool. The last thing I want you to get is that every single thing I'm going to talk about today is a choice, which I think is really, really exciting and very, very liberating, because a lot of times we tend to think that everything that's happening outside, as much as it has humongous influence and can be really challenging to work with and to digest and whatnot, we're always at choice around how we want to show up, how we want to take care of ourselves, how we choose to interact with our peers or a perfect stranger or whatever. So got those 4 things? How you show up matters, it's all a choice, your presence is your impact, and you're creating your culture. Cool? All right, cool. So let's go ahead and look at this first. How many of you could have had this as your name tag this week? Okay, raise your hand if you're busy. Raise both hands if you're like super, super busy. Okay, feet. All right. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to feel right now the energy of busy. We'll go back to this for just a second. I hit the button by accident. Feel the energy of busy. Feel that in your body. Okay? Now feel the energy of just being present right here, right now, in this room with me. Just right here. Now feel the energy of stress. Feel stress in your body. And notice where that lives for you. And if you feel like it, just point to it. Back of the neck, back of the knee, back of the lower back, pain in the back, right? Okay, now I want you to feel the energy and just the feeling of absolute love. Just love. And notice where that lives in your body. Okay, so notice how quickly we could do this for this whole session, just going through different energetic states. We could tap into busy, we could tap into anger, we could tap into blame, we can tap into resentment, we can as easily tap into curiosity, love, contribution, service. These are all different energetic states that are having an impact on how we show up in the world. So let's just do this for fun. I want everyone in here to notice right now on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being that you are absolutely exhausted, okay, which this week you guys probably are pretty wiped out, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. So 0, you're exhausted. It's amazing you're sitting in this room with me right now. 10, you feel so good. Your body is so in alignment, like you could run a marathon right now. And just throw me some numbers. 0 to 10, where would you put yourself physically speaking? 7, 5, 3, 4, 7. Anybody higher than a 7? Great. Anybody lower than a 3? Okay, wow. Okay, maybe a little bit in the back. All right. So -8s are welcome in here. It is not a matter what's not important here is that you're a 10. What's important is that you tap into your physical body and look at how you're feeling and what your body actually needs in order to support you in showing up better for yourself right now. All right, so notice, if you listen into your body, notice what is the littlest thing you could do right now from an energetic standpoint to support yourself. So when I'm looking at physical energy, it might be that I need a glass of water. I might need to breathe. I might need to just sit up. Maybe some of you want to come up and start doing yoga poses here, which would be perfectly fine. Maybe you need some sleep. You know, maybe you're exhausted and you need some sleep. So you're not going to do it in this session, please. But tonight, maybe you promise you're going to get to bed an hour earlier. So the idea here is to just notice and drop into your body so that you've got the ability to make that choice for yourself of how you're going to support yourself in showing up more. So that's physical. Let's look at mental. So mental energy, a 0 is your body is in this room, but you are nowhere to be found. You're completely checked out. Okay? 10, you're here, and you're hanging on every single word. So where would you guys put yourself? 9, 10, I feel you're 9. 9, 10, 7, 5. Okay, great. Wherever you're at, notice what's getting in the way of you being totally present in the room. So here's what usually is happening. Why are we doing an energy check at the beginning of a session? I want to learn tips about leadership. We're in it. This is one of your tips. Okay? Oh God, I gotta sign that permission slip. Or, oh gosh, I'm so distracted by what happened this week. Or, gosh, I gotta go to this next session next and I don't want to be late. So you're not actually present in the room. And when we're working with people, with our kids or with our teams or with anybody, we can feel it, right? If I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so here, I'm so present, she knows I'm not actually here. And it is one of the biggest trust and credibility busters that we can do as leadership. So that mental energy piece is worth checking into before you walk into a room to see how am I showing up, how present am I to this human being, because again, your presence matters. So you might want to look right now and just go, okay, what's the littlest thing I could do to bring myself back in the room? If you're in a state of like, oh gosh, I got 15 things to do, cool, they're still going to be there in 40 minutes, I promise. The return on investment for actually bringing yourself present in this room and present in any conversation you're in is going to be well worth those 15 things you have to do. If you find yourself in a state of judgment, right, or like frustration or whatever, you're going in to talk to one of your direct reports and you got to give feedback, and you're finding that you're just not being able to be present, you want to look at what is the most powerful energetic state you could tap into that would be real for you. So maybe it's curiosity. You know, maybe it's, how could I be of service to this person? Or, what's going on for this person that they're not performing in the way that is supporting them best? Or, how might an energy check actually support me in my leadership? Okay, last one I want you to look at is just your vibrational energy. Okay, so I am from California, but I will tell you this work goes around the world, so I'm going to use words like vibration and intention today. Your vibrational energy is basically the vibe you brought in the room when you came in here today. It's what you brought in with you. The 0, and we all know this person, and sometimes we might even be this person. The 0 is the person who's sitting there. Do you guys know this person? Do you love having this person in the room with you? Do you want to get into like a really good, productive conversation with that person? No. Okay. Have you ever been that person? Okay, good. All right, so I don't see any of you here at a 0, which is great. I truly appreciate that. But just notice that 0. 0, you're actually sucking the energy out of the room. You're a drain to the room. A 10, your presence and your intention and the quality of your vibration is so good that you don't even need to say a word. It just feels better having you in the room with us right now. Like your presence is your gift. So just for fun, where would you put yourself? 0 to 10. 8, 9, 8. Yeah. How about over here? 5. Okay, great. Anybody lower than a 5? Anybody doing this and I can't see you because of the lights? Stop it. Okay. Well, here's the fun thing about that. That's the vibe you bring in. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The energy, or the law, Anese's law, and general cultural law, if you pay attention to this, is that the lowest vibration in the room will win, unless you're really good at holding your state and staying present and projecting a positive and helpful vibe. And this doesn't mean that you're like bouncing off the walls and super excited about everything. It just means that your quality of presence is a contribution to that room. All right, so anybody want to bring their quality of presence up? Yes, please? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Right now, first of all, just look at your neighbor. Don't get into a conversation. This does not need any words. Just look at your neighbor and see what it feels like to sit with them before we do this next step. A lot of you are already looking so good. This is kind of a moot point. All right, so now we're going to do this. You're going to close your eyes. You're just going to go with me. I know this is a little bit different than maybe traditional leadership development, but I promise you I'm taking you somewhere really juicy. So close your eyes, all right? And I want you just to notice your presence right now. Whatever you just gave yourself, physically, mentally, vibrationally, what you brought into this room, close your eyes and notice your presence. All right, now, set an intention for how you would like to show up instead. So envision yourself showing up in a manner that is much more powerful and present and a positive contribution to everybody in this room and to yourself. So you notice where you're at, you envision how you'd like to show up instead. Once you've got that, you want to notice what's in the gap. What do you need to do right now to take care of yourself? Is it breath? You need a breath. Is it relaxing your body? Is it shifting your mindset, moving into a state of curiosity or contribution or gratitude or love? Just notice what you need to do to take care of yourself and do it right now. And the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to step into it. So that quality of presence, that intention that you're setting for how you'd like to show up, you're just going to become it. You don't have to go meditate. You don't need to take a walk. You don't need a sabbatical. You're going to make a choice as a human being and leader to step into a higher level of presence. And then for the rest of the session, you're just going to rinse and repeat, and rinse and repeat, and the rest of the day, and the rest of your life if you so choose. All right, so again, you notice where you're at. You notice where you'd like to be instead. You take care of yourself. You step in and become it. And then you rinse and repeat. Go ahead and open your eyes and see if the room looks or feels any different to you. And look at your neighbor and see if they look or feel any different to you. Are they any more pleasurable to be around? All right, how many of you found that useful? Okay, that's a presence reboot. It's really, really simple. The stuff I'm going to share with you today, none of it is rocket science. Okay? The rocket science is in the discipline of coming back to it over and over and over again so that you set yourself up not only for your own internal energy management, but also for what you bring to the people you're working with every day. So why would I spend this much time on this kind of an activity at the beginning of a talk? We only have 45 minutes together. Why would I lay it out like this? Why? That's a rhetorical question. I'm just going to keep going. So here's the reason why. Your answer is that you're contagious. If I wanted to completely sink the energy of this room right now and lose you guys and probably ruin your day, I would have you start talking about how busy you are, how hard this week has been. I'd have you start talking about what you don't like. I'd have you start talking about who you want to blame for things. If I wanted to wreck this room, we could focus our energy there. In fact, we could do a really foul game of telephone, and like one person over here starts, and they just got really negative energy, and then they talk to somebody, and then that person turns around, they're going to have negative energy and talk to somebody, and then the whole room is trashed, right? It works the other way as well. So we are contagious. How we show up, it matters. And it's a choice in every single moment. I get to choose how I want to walk into a room. I get to choose how I want to interact with the Uber driver when I get in there and he's in a really bad mood. True story yesterday, amazing. Right? We get to choose, and there's a choice point. And you know, if you start to really pay attention to your body, there is a choice point where you feel stress and you feel overwhelmed and you feel judgment or aggravation about somebody. and you have this moment, and you get to decide, I'm going to gather evidence for this and really get into resistance, or, how can I get curious about this and actually open up a little bit and maybe even tap into love? And whichever choice we make, that's contagious. So I've been working with business leaders for years, many, many years, in all different industries, law enforcement, business, startups, tech, design, healthcare, like you name it, I've been playing in that industry. And what I have found is that a lot of times when people contact me, they want to do leadership development. They want to change their culture. They want a culture of leadership and accountability. So they contact me and they say, hey, we want skills. Can you come in and do leadership development and skills and feedback training and all these things? And so in the olden days, I used to go in and I would do that. And I would say, okay, we want to talk about also their intention, their energy, their presence, how they're showing up. And the companies would say, no, we don't have time for that. We just want to focus on the skills. And it got to the point where I started to realize that when I did that, I was actually ripping them off, because no matter how great they got at the skills, if their intention, energy, and presence and the stuff that we're talking about in this session were not in alignment and were not productive, those skills could be the best in the world, but their energy underneath it was actually having a negative impact on people. Can you guys see that? And so I would say 9 out of 10 people that come to me are thinking that it's about leadership skills that are going to help them amplify their leadership. But actually what I found is that it's our presence that's our impact. All right? In fact, years ago, or in the early 90s, there was a study that was done at UCLA. There have been a couple of these. The one that really resonated for me said that as low as 7% of our impact is in the words that we actually say. 93% is in what we're communicating with our body language, our facial expressions, our tone. Basically, to me, this is all about how we show up. So 93%, right? So if you think about this, I know some people say it's 90, some people say it's 80. My mom says it's 18%. It doesn't matter what the number is for you. You want to look at what is it that's being communicated through your presence. What you're projecting out to the people around you. And what's being communicated to your internal dialogue. How you're showing up, how you talk to yourself, that's having a huge impact on your presence. So the last piece I want to give you with this is that I noticed that when leaders would come to me, there was 3 different kinds, and I want you to see which of these resonate for you the most personally. And don't even worry about people that you know that fall in these. Let's forget about the outside world right now, and let's just focus in here. Okay? So these 3 different kinds of leaders. The first leader, amazing at creating impact and results. Killing it, makes a ton of money, great at their craft, just phenomenal. However, they're burnt out. They're exhausted. Their relationships are falling apart. They don't see their kids. They're working 90-hour weeks, and they don't love it. Okay, so that's not sustainable. They've got impact down, but they're missing the self-care piece. Then, I'd have leaders who are really great at self-care, right? Their chakras are all in alignment. They work 9 to 5. They eat at Whole Foods every day. They go to yoga every night. Really, really great at self-care and life balance, right? But totally ineffective at creating impact. All right, so that's not sustainable. And then the final group were the leaders who were great at self-care and impact, but they left dead bodies behind wherever they went. Right? They left dead bodies. At worst case scenario, dead bodies. So people would work for them. They were really good at creating the results, but it was at the expense of the inspiration of the people that worked with them. Best case scenario, they just weren't good at bringing them along. Can you guys relate to this? Note for yourself right now, which one of these are you strongest in, and which one is your Achilles heel? And the one you're strongest in, that's an opportunity to model it and mentor it for other people. The one that you're the weakest in, that's an opportunity to get help and give it a little bit more attention. Now, I find in these rooms when people come to do this work with me that usually the majority are the weakest in self-care. How many of you would say self-care is your Achilles heel? How many of you would say impact is your Achilles heel? And meeting people where they're at? How many of you are willing to admit you leave dead bodies behind everywhere you go? Oh, I love you so much. Awesome. We all do it. So here's what I did about it. I realized that no matter how amazing somebody was that came to work with me, if we didn't get them a really strong base. No matter how much work we did around their skills, we weren't getting the job done. So we got to build our base. So I created what's called the IEP method. How many of you in here have read the book Contagious Culture? A couple of you, okay, it just came out. So in Contagious Culture, this content, we talk a lot more about this content with examples and actually how you use this with your team. But I created this methodology called the IEP method, which stands for Intentional Energetic Presence. All right? And there are 3 components. I kept finding with every company, every leader I worked with, there were 3 components that if I could get them to do this, everything else got easier. So the first one was rebooting their presence, which we just all did. Do you guys feel like you could reboot now without being in this session? I hope so. Like walking out of here, that's yours. You've got it. You can't unlearn how to reboot your presence. So the second component was the ability to create intentional impact, which I'm going to give you a 5-step framework for. And the third component was to build a really strong IEP foundation, which basically means that they set themselves up for success by taking care of themselves and really, really, really paying attention to their mindset, and a couple other components we're going to look at. And this was the IEP method. Super simple, right? Simple, looking at it, complex in applying it. And the only reason I find it's complex is because people forget. We get so busy, we forget. So the presence reboot, you guys have already done it. Get present, you notice, you intend what you want it to be instead. You go ahead and you take care of yourself and you shift it. You step into it, and you rinse and repeat. That's your presence reboot. You guys already know part 1 of the IEP method. The second piece, or what I should say here actually, is when we look at intentional energetic presence, I look at it in 2 ways. One is before you walk in this room, or into any room, into any conversation, you have the remembering that my presence has impact. And so you just walk in and you're intentional about your energetic presence. That's it. Super simple. Intentional about what am I projecting. The second way I look at intentional energetic presence is in 3 elements. The first thing is intention, what you want to have happen. I am saying this is what I want to have happen. Energy is how much energy do I have to do the work I'm here to do, and what is the energy I keep bringing to the table. And your presence is how present are you in the moment. What is your leadership presence? How present are you to the human being in front of you? How present are you to the reality of your life? So that's how I break it down. And then we built a model around it. And the model basically looks like this. You've got you. Most people think that leadership, the phone calls I get are like, oh gosh, if my team was easier to work with, if my husband was easier to work with, if my kids were better behaved, and the finger is getting pointed out this way. And they're looking externally to shift this. But actually, when I point my finger out, I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me, which means there's something I'm doing. There's something I can do to contribute better to that. And so this actually gives me a lot of power. A lot of people get frustrated when I say this. They go, no, it's totally his fault. You don't know him, he's a jerk. But there is always, always something that I can look at in a way that I'm showing up with that person. Either in my projections, my judgment of them, or maybe it's as simple as I'm not making requests. Who knows? But that's why we start with you, okay? Then we look at your energy and your presence, what you're putting out, and how you're taking care of yourself so you can be the best instrument of change possible. Then once we've done that, now we can look at your actions and skills, because if we've got the inner handled, and your energy's right, your intention's right towards people, now those actions and skills are way easier to work with. And then if we've done this, we're more likely to have the impact we want to have. It doesn't always work out perfectly, but we're certainly a lot closer to it. All right, so here's a little bit of a deeper dive. When you look at Essential You, this is what lives there. And if you haven't done work around some of the things I'm going to talk about, it's an invitation to go back and start playing with these. The Essential You is all about your values, your purpose, why you guys get out of bed in the morning, why you do the work that you do. The Essential You is you and your space. When I first started up today, we did a presence reboot. You could also take that one step further and just imagine you've got a bubble of energetic space around you that is your own space. The Essential You is you and your total authenticity. It's just you. It's like who you are. Okay? Now if we move to the energy and presence, this is, to me, combined with Essential You, this is the most important piece. And I want to talk just quickly about each of these 4 quadrants. Your physical and environmental energy these are the questions you ask yourself. Does the food I eat and the way I take care of my body, does it support me in being the best instrument of change possible? Does it support you? So places to look here are your food, your exercise, your closets are having a huge impact on your leadership you may not even know. You know, like if you start out your day and you've got a totally messy closet, that has a ripple effect for a lot of people, not everybody. Some people love their messy closets, so I leave you alone. But you want to look at your physical and environmental energy. How is it setting you up? This includes like who you hang out with. It includes, you know, you get a phone call and your heart drops because you see the caller ID, or you see someone on a calendar and you're like, oh my gosh, that person's in this meeting again. You want to look at that. That has a huge impact on your energy. All right? So for everyone right now, I want you just to ask yourself, is the way you're taking care of yourself supporting you and showing up at your best? Your sleep, your hydration, the people you're hanging out with, the way you organize your calendar. And right now, pick one thing you could do today, walking out of this room, that would support you better physically and environmentally. What's one thing? And if I were you, I would write it down, because there's something magical about writing stuff down and getting it out of your brain and onto your paper or into your computer. Thank you. Everybody have something? Somebody throw me one thing. Sleeping? How many had sleeping? Great. Do you have an idea of how you would create more space for sleep in your life? Okay. Just do it. Just do it. Turn off the TV. Like, yeah, I know, life is full, but you want to really look at that. Whatever you came up with in physical and environmental, you just want to check out, like, how do I need to take accountability to create more space for this in my life? All right. So your mental and emotional energy, this is all about the thoughts you think, the assumptions you make. Okay? This is how you talk to yourself. This is your complaints. So underneath every single complaint is just an uncommunicated request or suggestion. And underneath that request or suggestion is a dream. It's something that somebody really wants. So for example, if I am complaining that Abby never calls me, Abby, you never call me, oh my gosh, your emails, like it takes you a month to get back to me. How compelling am I right now? Do you think she's going to want to call me? No, right? Versus if I say, hey, Abby, I would love for us to have a better relationship. I notice that it takes a while for us to like close the loop on phone calls and emails. Would it be possible? Would you mind getting back to me within 24 hours? It's a simple request. And then Abby gets to say, oh no, Anese, that's impossible. I'm not going to get back to you that fast. But now we're in the conversation. What's the dream that's underneath that request? Better relationship. I want us to do better work together. You know, I don't want to have this like ick in terms of our relationship. So there's the dream that's underneath the request. So think about complaints that you have right now. Just find one complaint. And what is the request? What's the uncommunicated request that lives underneath that complaint? You guys find one? You know, it's so hot in here, it's so hot in here, it's so hot in here. Oh gosh, you guys, you know what? It's really warm in here. Can we turn the air conditioning up? Way more compelling. Now, what's really fun for this, a little side note, is that how many of you get complained to? Only a couple of you? That is so good. I want to hang out with you guys. That's amazing. So here's the thing. Someone comes to you and they're complaining. You get to go, oh, wow, George, I hear your complaint. What would you like instead? And now you've just given George the gift of a space to look into for himself of what he'd like. Now he's got to be a little bit more accountable about that complaint. Now just because George gives you his request doesn't mean you have to do it. It means you go, oh, okay, George, I hear you. Wow, that's interesting that you'd like that. What's the littlest thing you could do to start making that happen? Right? So you're giving it back. And part of being able to give it back and to notice when George is complaining and to have the, you know, for you to have the facility to actually go, okay, wow, complaint coming at me, that's a lot of energy, he's really angry. Part of the ability to do that comes from what we're talking about today in really making sure you set yourself up to be as present and conscious as possible. So when that energy is coming at you, you know how to interact with it really productively. So mental and emotional energy, find anything right now. Maybe it's I'm going to be nicer to myself. I'm going to tell myself I am amazing 5 times a day. It could be I'm going to check my assumptions. I'm going to change my complaints into requests. Like find something that you will do walking out of here that is going to up-level your presence and your leadership? And I would write that one down too, if that feels useful to you. Everybody have one? Throw me one. She's going to tell herself I'm amazing, or she's amazing, and positive self-talk. Yeah, positive self-talk, this is one of the biggest ones that I see. Like it sounds really obvious. We always say, be nice to yourself, be nice to yourself. It's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. So, and it is one of the places where I was working with a client last week, and I said, how have you been talking to yourself lately? And what is it that you do to take care of yourself? And she burst into tears. This is a high-level executive who is killing it in the world, and she is brutal with herself. So it's really worth noticing, how is it that you talk to yourself, and is it setting you up for success or not? All right, so if we move on to vibrational energy, we're going to move through these a little bit quicker now. Vibrational energy, again, it's what you bring into the room. The quickest way to shift your vibrational energy in your presence is to get in touch with your intention and regard for whatever is happening in the room and for whoever that person is. So if I walk into a room and I'm in a state of not being present, really busy because I'm in that back room, or that back meeting, or if I'm irritated, I got to sit down and have this meeting, that intention and regard is going to get projected to that person. So if I can set a higher intention or step into a better state, like curiosity or gratitude or whatever it might be that's authentic, that automatically is going to have an impact on my vibrational presence. The other quick way to address your vibrational presence and how you show up is your face. Anybody in here know anybody that always looks like they're mad? How many of you love hanging out with that person? I mean, you might love hanging out with them, but you might be a little bit scared of them. So the face, and we all have a default presence. Our default presence is the face we're making, the body language, the posture. When we think nobody's paying attention, it's just our default. And I cannot tell you guys how many times we've had people come to us, and one of the main things we change is their awareness of their face and the facial expressions they're making with people. And that actually is their game changer. Right? So all of you right now are going, oh yeah, George has got a really bad face. So again, this is for you, not for you to think about George. This is for you guys. Like, just notice, what is the littlest thing you can do to start increasing your vibrational presence so that you show up even better with people around you? So everyone pick one, note it up here, write it down, type it in your phone, I don't care, but anchor it in. The presence reboot we did at the beginning, that is a really good way to keep coming back to presence. All right, you guys got one? Okay, so now the last piece is relational energy. So notice that as we go around this little circle, we're building as we go. You know, you have a ton of control over your physical and environmental energy, a ton. It's not always perfect. You know, you travel, you don't have control always of your food or of your hotel room, but there are a million things you can do to take control of that. You know, like right now, if you guys open up my bag, I've got emergency food in my bag in case I don't have control over my food. So there's always stuff on the right side with physical and environmental energy and mental and emotional. There's always things we can do. We have more control there. So if you take the time to really address those, it then makes vibrational and relational easier. And by the time you've gone through the first 3 quadrants and you hit relational, here's what happens with relational. It's a lot cleaner and clearer to figure out what you're dealing with in this relationship of why the relational energy doesn't feel good. So here's the question you want to look there. Which of my relationships are life-giving and which are soul-sucking? Okay? And for the ones that are life-giving, what's the littlest thing I can do to nurture them? Thank you. What's the littlest thing I can do to nourish them? And for the ones that are soul-sucking, what's the littlest thing I can do to shift the way I show up with them? Or what is the request I want to make? You just want to be looking at, in this quadrant, the quality of your relationships and how that impacts your energy and how also you're contributing to it. And I promise when you do that and you start to look at these different questions, it gives you a completely different set of areas to look that will give you so much more wisdom than just sitting here and doing this. All right, so that's building your base. So here's the deal, is if you go through and you pay attention to your essential you and who you are and authentically showing up and you hold your space, and then at the same time, you're really taking care of your energy and your presence and addressing these 4 quadrants, Then, when we get into all those different skills, and these are just some of them, all of a sudden, those become a lot easier and cleaner to keep doing with people. Every single person in this room can think about people who are really good at doing that outer circle, but they do it at the expense of other people. People don't love following them. And if you ask yourself, are you the kind of leader that people want to follow or that they have to follow? A lot of times, that's happening in that middle center, in that middle circle. Okay, so do people follow you because they want to, because you're showing up in a way that feels really good to them, or are they following you because they have to, because you give them a paycheck and you're their boss? So this is where we want to look. I promise you that starting in the middle and taking really good care of yourself, that is the thing that makes that outside circle stronger, and then you are much more likely to have the impact you want. All right, so that's the IEP foundation. Again, you notice you've got the internal and the external. Internal, you have control over it. External, not as much control, but boy, does it set you up better. Right? For example, I could do all my internal work before I come in here. I could be humming in quadrants 1 and 2. I come in here, I've done all my pre-work, I've set my intentions. I have no control over how you guys feel about me, if you receive this content, if you like me. I don't have any control over that. But at least I've done everything I can to have the best possible impact. Make sense? Same with, let's just say I come in here and you guys are completely in a bad mood and you don't want me here. I'm going to be a lot more resilient. I'm going to be a lot better able to handle that kind of energy pushing back at me. So I'm going to take questions in a few minutes. All right, so now here's the third part of the IEP method. So do you guys have this foundation? You've got the reboot your presence. You have build your foundation. All right, now we're going to intend your impact. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you a link to a tool you guys can download that has all of this on one page. And you can fill it in every single day if you want. But this is where I want you to look for intending your impact. Before you walk into any meeting, any conversation, you want to get really, really clear on the outcomes you want to get. Your outcomes. So what are your outcomes? So for me, outcomes today, I want you guys to understand the 3 components of the IEP method. And I want you to have at least 3 things you're going to do walking out the door that are going to help you amplify your leadership presence. All right? Then you want to get clear on your emotional impact. What's the emotional impact you want to have on this person or on these people that you're going to be with? What's the emotional impact? This to me is gold. It's surprising so many times how we go into a meeting and we're not clear on our outcomes. Right? It's like 50-50. But the emotional impact, if you can set an intention around how you want people to experience the meeting or you or the situation, that's to me, that's gold. Because you start to show up in a way that will support that. The third piece you want to look at is your presence. How will you have to actually show up? So for me, if I go back to emotional impact, I want you guys to be curious. I want you to have a little bit of fun with this. And I want you to feel confident that, there's a couple things I could take in this, and actually this is going to serve myself or my team or my wife. Right? Presence, if I want to get that impact, I better be present. Right? I want to pay attention to how I'm showing up. I want to pay attention to how I feel about you guys. Like, I love you before I even walk in the door. That helps me a lot, personally, with my presence. All right? And then the next thing you want to look at is your beliefs. What do you need to believe? What do you need to believe in order to create that impact and to show up that way? So if you walk into a meeting and you're believing that everybody there is not going to get it, or they're going to be a pain, or you're going to give feedback and the person's just never going to get it, and you give them this gorgeous feedback, they're not going to get it. So you want to find what is a belief that can support you in showing up that way. And then finally, what do you have to actually do? What are the actions? If you guys start applying these to your conversations and your meetings, this is a quick hack for getting intended impact really, really quickly. All right? Make sense? Okay. So now you've got this for you. The most important piece, I talked earlier, you emanate the culture. So can you see as you take care of yourself and you get really clear about your IEP and how you show up, now you've got a better chance of going out and infecting your culture in a really positive way. And I think about culture as, this is my definition. Basically the energy of the container we create for ourselves and for others to do our best work, to show up well, to be awake, like all these different pieces, to be on purpose. We create this container. And the thing that's creating the container is how each of us come to the table. And the pieces I gave you at the beginning of this, in this first part, are all ways to help you come to the table in a more productive way. Here are some quick tips. If you guys want to take this back to your team, here are a couple places to look. They're going to help you make changes fast. Your complaints, you turn them into requests. Your team complains, you ask them for the request or the suggestion. Instead of focusing on lack, what you guys don't have, what's not working well, you start focusing on gratitude and use that lack as something to actually be grateful for. Wow, this isn't working well. Okay, this is amazing. How can we actually do better with this? It's a choice and a mindset. Gossip, and gossip versus direct engagement. Gossip is one of the most toxic cultural killers I've looked at. It's amazing. If you guys look at the book, there's the Super 7 in terms of what actually creates cultural health. Gossip is on the other end. It's the danger zone. So direct engagement instead is you go directly to the person, you ditch the gossip. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's worth underlining. Lateness versus time integrity. Everybody being so busy, a lot of that's because you're late all the time. So you really want to look at how do you create more time integrity in your organization if that is important to you. Victimhood versus accountability. They create the culture, I have no control, versus, how am I showing up? How can I actually be part of the solution versus contributing to the problem? Even if the way that I'm creating that problem is because I keep gossiping and complaining about it, and I keep choosing to be in a bad mood about it. How can I be part of the solution? That's a mindset of accountability. And then finally, oh gosh, it just took me through. Finally, you want to pay attention to, there you go. It's not going to let you have it. Your language, your presence, okay? Your language, the words that you use, what you focus on, your presence, and everything that goes with that. You just want to start looking. Everything you do and say, does it create expansion and connection, or does it create contraction and disconnection? That's it. Just start noticing. You walk out of here today, you're going to go be with a bunch of people, you get into conversations, lots of stuff is happening right now. The stuff that you're speaking to, are you supporting yourself, and are you creating expansion and connection, or contraction and disconnection? And if you can start to set intentions around that and breathe into it and get present, you have a completely different kind of conversation. All right, so now you're going to go home, you're going to make this real. All right, you're going to show up, you've got your 3 things, reboot your presence, do your 5 steps, create your foundation. We've been through all of this. If you guys want that tool that I mentioned, here's the tool. It's at iep.io. You will get all sorts of virtual presence kits and team presence kits and this fun little tool that we just created for you. All right? And then you just get to show up. And that's it. Show up. So let's all show up together. I think it's more important than ever that we do this now. And thank you.